All right, so let's talk a little bit about the IMC process. And of course, as you recall, that IMC process, four W's: who is the target audience, what are the objectives, budget, and tools, where should the promotion be run, and when should the promotion be run. We're going to focus today on who is the target market. The target audience is the group of individuals at which the marketing program is aimed, hence the term target market. Target for target, audience and audience, or market for market. And so the target audience is the group of people who we have specifically identified in a target market, who is going to be the aim of our marketing program. So the target audience think about the target audience for calf roping ropes. I was watching TV the other day, and a company was on there selling calf roping ropes. And then compare that to the target audience for Dell's Alienware computer. Compare that to the target audience for Netflix. And so if you understand that each of these target audiences results in, it creates their own set of challenges in terms of what the promotional mix should look like and what the promotional plan should look like. Another example is younger millennials, making up 31% of the adults, or 31 million adults, or 13% of all adults are younger millennials. Older millennials, a slightly larger group, is about 18% of all adults. If you take a look at if we were just going to target the younger and older millennials together, we would have over 30% of the market by just focusing on millennials, younger and older. The target audience, the selection of the target audience helps us to determine what our communication objectives are going to be, the media that's going to be used, the message that's going to be used, and even the budget and how the budget's going to be allocated. So once we understand the target audience, that has a major impact on the other elements of the other four W's that we just discussed. So when we identify the target audience, there's a couple ways to look at this. For instance, one of the questions is, who do we want to hear our message? Do we want the buyer? Of course, most of the time we think, well, I want the person who's going to actually be doing the buying to hear the message. Or the decider, or the user, or the influencers, or the opinion leaders, and the list sort of goes on and on here. But the answer typically is, well, all of them, except different messages probably need to be made to different groups. This is usually determined by demographics, but sometimes by lifestyles. With database, it might even be a behavior. So, one of the ways to look at this is where customers are in the purchase process. Remember, we went back to the consumer adoption models that we discussed earlier in the book, and those include either the ATOP model, awareness, interest, evaluation, trial, and adoption, or the ADA model, which starts off with awareness, interest, desire, and action. Both of these, and if you think about it, where an individual consumer is in this process would impact what the communications plan should look like to move them further through this process. All right, so let's see how we would use this awareness, interest, evaluation, trial, and adoption model, and how an IMC campaign for the new tailor-made SIM driver would move individuals through this process. Of course, the first stage is to build awareness for the SIM driver. That would, of course, include an advertising campaign, probably podcasts, a number of online opinion leaders testing the driver and getting it out into the visual and evaluation environment for golfers. After people become aware of the driver, you have to create interest in the SIM driver. Now, that's done a number of different ways. One of the ways that a company like TaylorMade does this is they make sure that the professional golfers who are using their brand try their driver. Now, this has been an odd year for that, but in general, they try to make sure that their driver is being used by touring pros. That almost always creates interest because people see that driver in the hands of a pro and they think, wonder what that's all about. Third, there's educating the consumer on the tailor-made value proposition and competitive advantage. Why would I want to buy a SIM driver? Well, golf drivers, there are two things that tend to be aspects of a new golf driver. It hits the ball further and it hits the ball straighter. Then we need to induce the trial of the sim driver, because no one is probably going, or very few people at least, are going to buy a $500 or $600 driver if they don't get a chance to try it. So in terms of an IMC campaign here, TaylorMade will have demo days at golf courses and country clubs, and make sure that they have demos available at golf stores. And then they, of course, will also do demonstrations vicariously online, using pros from around the country trying that driver against perhaps other TaylorMade and other brands of drivers. Then you need to get customers to actually adopt the driver as their brand. There are lots of people who play TaylorMade drivers already, but the trick is they've got to convince those people that they should upgrade to the sim driver. And of course, when you do that, you implicitly build sales for the sim driver and create positive word of mouth and interest for people further down the adoption process, from innovators down to early adopters, down to early majorities. And then, of course, the goal is to establish the TaylorMade Sim Driver brand identity, so that we can produce new products and new product innovations and new versions of the driver, and take advantage of the brand equity that we've built up in the TaylorMade Sim brand. So, once again, remember, you have to get the customers right. Remember what I always say: if you know your customers, you know your business.